They called her a failure, a washed-up soldier. To everyone at Fort Carson, Sergeant Maya Mitchell was a disgrace who had let her country down. She was treated like she was worthless, given the worst jobs on the base while other soldiers laughed and recorded her on their phones. She was just another broken veteran, and no one gave her any respect. But there was a small, faded tattoo on her arm that nobody noticed. It seemed to have no meaning until a top general walked by one day and was stunned by what he saw. He recognized the tattoo, and it revealed the hidden truth about who Maya really was. The hot Colorado sun beat down on Fort Carson Army Base as Sergeant Maya Mitchell stepped off the transport truck, her one duffel bag over her shoulder. The 29-year-old soldier walked with a determined, steady pace, but her dark eyes showed a heavy burden, something too deep for a person so young. Her file said it all: problem soldier, failed a mission in Syria, recommended for discharge. But Maya didn't know that Corporal Jake Morrison had been waiting for this very moment for 2 long years. Jake Morrison was a tall, muscular soldier who spent countless hours in the gym. 2 years earlier, at Fort Bragg, he and Maya had competed for the same leadership role. Maya had outperformed him, and Jake was humiliated in front of their entire battalion. When her name was called for the promotion instead of his, that defeat lit a fire of resentment in Jake. Now, seeing her at Fort Carson, seemingly broken and demoted, Jake saw his chance for payback. Within hours of her arrival, Jake started a cruel campaign to break her spirit. He made group chats that left her out, started inside jokes about her, supposed failures, and turned other soldiers against her. "Did you hear about the new transfer?" he would lie. Mitchell left her team behind when they needed her most. They say she froze during a firefight and her whole unit was captured. The false stories spread quickly through the ranks. Soon, Maya was eating every meal alone, with no one to talk to. During training, conversations would stop the moment she walked near. Jake made sure Maya's life was a special kind of hell that he carefully planned. She would find cruel notes in her locker, saying things like, "Failures don't belong here," and "Your team deserved better." During training exercises, other soldiers would accidentally forget to include her in important meetings. Jake assigned her the worst jobs, like cleaning bathrooms and equipment maintenance, keeping her working late after everyone else was done. "We can't trust her with anything important," Jake would say. "She might crack under pressure again." The breaking point arrived during a physical training session. Maya finished the 2-mile run a full 3 minutes faster than Jake's personal best. In the push-up contest, she did 50 more than anyone else. At the shooting range, she hit every single one of her 50 targets perfectly, while others struggled to even be 70% accurate. For a moment, Jake felt that same feeling of being not good enough that he'd felt 2 years ago. But instead of respecting her skill, he decided to be even crueler. "Wow, Mitchell!" Jake shouted, loud enough for the whole unit to hear, his voice full of fake praise. "Too bad you can't do that when real bullets are flying at you, right, guys?" The words hit Maya hard, but she kept her composure with incredible willpower. She calmly packed her gear, her movements sharp and controlled, and walked away with perfect military posture. But the cameras caught the small signs of her pain. Her fist was clenched so tight her knuckles were white, and a muscle in her jaw twitched. Some soldiers laughed nervously at Jake's cruel joke, while others looked away, uncomfortable. But no one, not a single person, stood up for Maya. That night, alone in her barracks, Maya sat on her bunk and took out a transfer request form. She had been carrying it for weeks. The form was already completely filled out. All she needed to do was sign it to escape this nightmare. Her hands shook as she picked up the pen. "Maybe they're right," she whispered to herself. "Maybe I am just a failure who got lucky. I should just disappear before I hurt anyone else. Everyone would be better off if I just vanished." The words felt bitter and painfully true. Just as she was about to sign, her eyes fell on a small photo in her wallet. It showed 7 people, in full combat gear, their arms around each other, smiling at the camera. Maya gently traced each face with her finger, whispering their names no one else on the base knew. Marcus, Jessica, Tony, David, Sarah, Mike, Rodriguez. These were the faces she saw in her dreams every night. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the photo. "I'm so sorry I failed you all." But then, her expression changed. She folded the transfer request and put it away without signing. "Not yet," she said with quiet resolve. I owe them more than this. That night, Maya started a new routine. She cleaned her weapon with total focus, did 100 extra push-ups in the dark, read letters from home to remember she was still a person, and touched the small tattoo on her arm, thinking about secrets no one else could ever know. As the weeks went on, Maya's deep tactical knowledge sometimes even impressed Jake. Her combat reflexes were too sharp for a regular soldier, and the small scars on her hands hinted at real battle experience. She was always aware of her surroundings, but these signs were missed by everyone on the base, who only saw the failure that Jake wanted them to see. Then one evening, Maya found a shocking anonymous note in her locker. It read, "Some secrets are worth dying for. Others are worth living for. Which one is yours?" Jake Morrison had spent his nights planning his campaign of psychological torture. By the second month of Maya's assignment, he had created a hostile environment that was close to criminal harassment. His newest idea was a group chat he called Base Comedy Central, which had over 40 soldiers in it, but was designed to exclude Maya. Every day, Jake would post memes that made fun of her, encouraging others to join in with their own insults. One cruel poster used Maya's military portrait with the words, "When you try your best, but your best sucks." The chat was so popular that soldiers started using its inside jokes during training, creating a secret code of mockery that followed Maya everywhere. The gossip network Jake had built turned every meal and every break into a chance to spread the lie about Maya's incompetence. "I heard she froze in a firefight and her team took casualties," Jake would say at lunch. "Her entire unit got hurt because she can't handle pressure." The stories became more and more detailed. Command wants to kick her out, but they can't because of legal issues. Jake was an expert at planting seeds of doubt. She probably lied about her service record from the start. How else could someone fall so far so fast? These conversations were always just loud enough for Maya to hear. The secret of the tattoo was finally revealed on a hot Tuesday afternoon. The air conditioning in the equipment room was broken, and Maya was working alone, repairing a complex radio antenna. Her technical skill was obvious as she expertly figured out the problem. The heat made her roll up her sleeves for the first time at Fort Carson, revealing her right forearm. Just then, Jake burst in with a few other soldiers, their phones out and ready to film, as making fun of Maya had become their regular entertainment. But he stopped cold. There, on Maya's arm, was a tattoo unlike any he had ever seen. It was a black phoenix, professionally and expensively done, with 7 silver stars in a perfect triangle around the bird. The design was too meaningful to be a typical military tattoo. "Look at Mitchell's mall tattoo," Jake yelled, pulling out his phone to take a picture. "What's that supposed to be? Some emo bird from a cheap store?" Maya's reaction was instant. She pulled her sleeve down with panic in her eyes. For the first time, her composure broke, and she showed real fear, as if the tattoo's reveal was more dangerous than simple embarrassment. Sensing her fear, Jake, like a predator, pushed his attack further. "Come on, Mitchell, what's the story behind your little participation trophy?" he sneered, making air quotes. "Did you get that for your heroic work in Syria? A memorial to your own failure?" The other soldiers, encouraged by Jake, joined in. "Looks expensive for someone who failed a simple mission," one said. "Maybe it's a phoenix because her career is dead and she's trying to rise from the ashes," another laughed. "More like a dead pigeon," a third added, and they all erupted in laughter. Maya walked out without saying a word, but Jake had already posted the photo online. The picture spread like wildfire. Within hours, Maya's tattoo was turned into dozens of cruel memes and jokes. Failure Phoenix. The Syria Survivor Starter Pack. Bad tattoo plus worse reputation. Soon, everyone at Fort Carson was calling her Failure Phoenix, making bird noises when she passed, and leaving plastic Phoenix toys at her locker with signs that said "Crash Landed." The bullying had become a coordinated attack on Maya, with Jake leading the charge. Lieutenant Ryan Torres, a good and fair 24-year-old officer, had been watching the harassment with growing concern. When he saw the photo of the tattoo at lunch, he knew something was wrong. The design was too precise and professional to be just any tattoo. Torres knew that some tattoos in the military had deep, secret meanings, and he felt Maya's was one of them. He tried to research the design in military records, but found nothing, which only made him more suspicious. When he asked older soldiers about special unit tattoos, no one recognized it. Most troubling of all, When Torres tried to look up Maya's full military record, he found it was almost completely blocked, far more restricted than the file of a simple problem soldier should be. His investigation showed that everything about Maya's official story was a lie. Her medical files were 90% blacked out and stamped classified. Her training scores were perfect, even though she supposedly had discipline problems. The dates of her Syria mission didn't match any official records he could find. When he called a contact at the Pentagon to verify her information, the conversation became tense. "I need to check a soldier's background," Torres said. "What's the name?" his contact asked. "Maya Mitchell, stationed at Fort Carson," Torres replied. After a long silence, the voice on the phone said, "I can't help you with that." When Torres asked why, the response was a stern warning. "Stop asking questions you're not cleared for. That is a direct order, Lieutenant." The more Torres watched Maya, the more he was sure that an incredible secret was being hidden right in front of them. Her awareness in any situation was exceptional. She could sense threats and find exits in seconds. She moved with a fluid grace that suggested years of intense combat training. Even while other soldiers mocked her, they would still instinctively follow her tactical advice during exercises. She knew about advanced military equipment that regular soldiers had never even seen, and she stayed in top physical shape, far beyond what her current duties required. Torres knew Maya Mitchell was not who she claimed to be. Meanwhile, Maya's emotional state worsened under the constant attack. One evening, she returned to her barracks to find her personal space covered in fake phoenix patches and a cruel note. "Even mythical birds know when to stay dead. Time to fly away forever, failure." This final act of cruelty broke something inside her. She sat on her bunk, her hands shaking as she looked at the patches. That night, she went outside under the dark Colorado sky. Her voice cracked as she spoke to herself. 7 of us went into hell together. Only one came back alive. Maybe it should have been someone else. Maybe I'm the wrong one who survived. She took out the transfer request again and picked up a pen to sign it. But as she looked at the photo of her 7 fallen friends, she whispered each of their names again. Marcus, Jessica, Tony, David, Sarah, Mike, Rodriguez. "I am so sorry for failing you." With a huge effort, she put the request away. "Not yet," she said. "I haven't honored your memory enough." Torres finally made a shocking discovery. Digging deeper into Maya's records, he found a single, unredacted line: Phoenix Unit. Operation, classified. Survivor status, unknown. What was Phoenix Unit? And why did the military believe Maya was dead? Jake Morrison's cruelty reached its peak when he announced a failure Phoenix Day at Fort Carson. Over 50 soldiers joined in, wearing homemade Phoenix patches, calling each other legendary failures, and holding fake ceremonies to mock Maya. During training, they formed a V shape like a phoenix in flight, a display that looked impressive, but was just a cruel, organized joke. Jake filmed it all, sharing the videos to create a permanent digital record of the harassment. The base was buzzing with the cruel fun, with soldiers trying to come up with the most creative ways to humiliate her. Maya was forced to do her normal duties while surrounded by this nonstop cruelty. Every part of her day became a public humiliation. When she cleaned the bathrooms, soldiers would make bird sounds and flap their arms. In the mess hall, they'd ask for phoenix sauce and ask if she could fly their food over to them. Inspections became a test of her ability to ignore sarcastic salutes and whispered comments about her legendary skills. Every task she did was another chance for them to mock her, creating an environment so toxic that even some of Jake's friends started to feel uncomfortable. But Jake, fueled by his need for revenge, pushed on relentlessly. The final straw came. When Maya was hiding in the supply room, trying to find a moment of peace to organize inventory. The dimly lit room, with its familiar military smells, was her only sanctuary. But that peace was shattered when she found an anonymous package in her storage area, filled with things designed to cause her the most psychological pain. Inside were printed copies of all the memes made from her tattoo, a fake program for a memorial service titled Maya's Dead Career, and a note that read, "Even mythical phoenixes know when to stay dead. Time to fly away forever, Mitchell. Nobody wants you here." The sheer cruelty of the package broke something deep inside Maya. For the first time since coming to Fort Carson, she had a complete psychological breakdown. She sat on a supply crate, her hands shaking uncontrollably as tears she had held back for so long finally streamed down her face. The isolation, the mockery, and the destruction of her reputation had finally overwhelmed her powerful composure. She pulled out her phone and started typing a resignation message to her commanding officer. "Sir, I formally request immediate transfer. I am no longer effective in my position and believe my presence is a danger to unit cohesion." The words felt like a final defeat, an admission that Jake had won. Maya saw no other way out. "This is it," she thought in despair. "This is how my story ends. Not in battle, but in shame, in a supply closet. 7 people died for nothing. If this is what I've become." Jake's final attack happened when he burst into the supply room with 6 other soldiers, all holding up their phones to record what he hoped would be her ultimate humiliation for his social media followers. "Look what we found, guys," he announced dramatically. The legendary phoenix in her natural habitat, hiding in dark corners like the failure she is. His confidence was unshakable, his cruelty perfected over months, and his audience was ready to enjoy the show. He had planned this moment for maximum impact. With multiple cameras to capture every angle, he accidentally knocked over several large cans of motor oil, and the thick, black liquid spilled across the floor, soaking Maya's uniform. "Oops, my bad, Phoenix," Jake said with fake concern. "Clean that up, will you? Show us those amazing janitor skills." He forced Maya to crawl on her hands and knees while his friends filmed, providing a running commentary like sports announcers. And there she is, folks. The mighty Phoenix, on her knees, exactly where she belongs. Jake's voice was full of triumph. This was the moment he had been working toward for months. Maya was covered in oil, her uniform ruined, her dignity gone. All while being recorded that Jake's final act of cruelty was to demand that Maya perform for them like an animal. "Come on, Mitchell, give us your famous Phoenix cry. Let's hear you rise from these ashes. Show us how legendary you really are." For a terrifying second, Maya stopped cleaning and looked up at Jake. Something dangerous flickered in her eyes, a hint of the warrior who had survived what others could not. But then, she looked away and submissively continued cleaning, appearing completely broken. Jake felt the thrilling rush of total victory, finally destroying the person who had once made him feel small. This was the perfect revenge he had dreamed of. For 2 years, the suspicion about Maya consumed Lieutenant Torres. In his off-duty hours, he began to watch her, an informal surveillance that grew into an obsession. He saw how she moved through the base with an unconscious tactical awareness that most soldiers never learn, always aware of exits, always assessing threats in a crowd, and moving with an efficiency that spoke of someone used to making life or death decisions. During equipment training, she demonstrated knowledge of advanced weapon systems that were not standard for regular infantry, casually mentioning technical details only special operations personnel would know. When discussing Middle Eastern geography in briefings, she showed a deep familiarity with the terrain in Syria that was far beyond what any soldier would learn from a standard deployment. Torres started keeping a private notebook of these observations. Knowing he was entering dangerous territory, but unable to shake the feeling that Maya Mitchell was far more than a disgraced soldier. Just as Jake was celebrating his victory, his triumph was cut short by an unexpected arrival that would change everything. General Robert Hayes, on an unannounced inspection of the base, stopped dead in his tracks when he walked into the supply room and saw the scene. The 58-year-old officer had served in the most dangerous places in the world, commanded thousands of soldiers, and seen the worst of combat. But nothing in his long and distinguished career had prepared him for what he was witnessing. The mood in the room shifted instantly. Even Jake knew something serious had just happened, though he didn't yet understand what. The room went completely silent, the only sound being the drip of oil from Maya's ruined uniform. General Hayes's face went through a series of complex emotions that no one there could read. Maya stood up to get some cleaning supplies from a high shelf. As she reached up, her oil-soaked sleeve slid all the way down, fully exposing her right forearm in the harsh fluorescent light. For the first time, General Hayes saw the tattoo clearly, the black phoenix with 7 silver stars in a perfect triangle. His face went pale. He stepped closer, squinting, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. A look of dawning recognition spread across his face. The 30 seconds of absolute silence that followed felt like an eternity to everyone, especially to Maya, who, despite being covered in oil and humiliated, snapped to perfect military attention. When General Hayes finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, as if he was afraid of the answer he might receive. "Sergeant, where exactly did you get that mark?" Maya's response would change everything. "Phoenix Unit, sir. Syria, 2019. 7 soldiers went in. 1 soldier came out." General Hayes looked at Maya with a mix of awe and crushing guilt. "Soldier," he said, his voice trembling. "I was told every member of Phoenix Unit was killed in action. I thought you were all dead." Maya, still standing perfectly at attention as oil dripped from her uniform, replied, "Sir, I was the only one who made it home alive." The folder in General Hayes's office had never felt heavier than it did when Lieutenant Torres arrived. He was carrying the thickest classified file anyone on the base had ever seen, stamped with Operation Phoenix, top secret, general access only. Hayes opened it with shaking hands, not from old age, but from the weight of memories he had tried to forget for 4 years. The file told a story that completely contradicted everything Fort Carson had been led to believe about Maya Mitchell. It revealed a truth so incredible that it shook the very foundation of how the base had treated one of America's greatest heroes. The mission photos showed 8 elite soldiers in full combat gear, their faces young and full of confidence, with no idea that 7 of them would never come home. The classified mission briefing described a goal that seemed impossible: to extract a high-value intelligence asset from a heavily guarded ISIS stronghold deep behind enemy lines. The after-action report, written in the cold, formal language of the military, could not truly capture the horror of what happened during Operation Phoenix. 7 soldiers killed in action, 1 survivor, the document stated briefly. But hidden between those words was a story of heroism and sacrifice that would change everything General Hayes thought he knew about courage. The intelligence report revealed the true success of what Maya and her team had done. Mission success: prevented major terrorist attack on American soil. Estimated lives saved: 2,000 plus American civilians. Classification level: top secret. National security priority. Hayes read each word over and over, trying to grasp the incredible achievement of these 8 soldiers and the terrible price that 7 of them had paid. Operation Phoenix had been a last-ditch, desperate plan. The mission was so dangerous that command had essentially accepted that no one would survive, even before they left. In 2019, American intelligence had located a high-value prisoner in an ISIS stronghold in Syria who had critical information about a massive terrorist attack plan for the Christmas shopping season on American soil. The plan was for 8 elite soldiers to get in, rescue the prisoner, and get out, all within 4 hours. But someone had leaked the mission details to the enemy, turning a secret extraction into a deadly trap. When Phoenix Unit arrived, they were met by 300 heavily armed enemy fighters waiting for them. With no chance of backup, they were on their own. The 72 hours that followed were a brutal test of human endurance. Maya watched as her 7 teammates died, one by one, each sacrificing themselves to complete the mission. Marcus died first, drawing enemy fire. Jessica was killed defending their escape route, her last words a calm radio report of enemy positions. Tony, David, Sarah, Mike, and Rodriguez all died in succession, each fighting to give Maya and the prisoner a chance to survive. For the last 36 hours, Maya fought completely alone, with no food, little water, and dwindling ammunition, but she somehow managed to keep both herself and the prisoner alive. The intelligence she brought back revealed detailed plans for coordinated bombings in 3 major American cities, attacks that would have killed thousands of innocent people. The cover-up that followed was massive and swift. To protect national security and Maya's identity from enemy retaliation, her real service record was completely buried under layers of classification. It was replaced with a fake history of failure and incompetence, a story created by intelligence. Professionals who knew that sometimes the greatest heroes must be hidden in plain sight. Maya herself had requested that her actions receive no public recognition. She could not accept honor for surviving when 7 of her friends had died on the same mission. The psychological reports in her file showed the depth of her survivor's guilt. Subject is extremely reluctant to discuss mission events. One note read. Repeatedly states that recognition should go to fallen teammates. Requests assignment. To low-profile position. General Hayes felt the immense weight of his own responsibility as he read the file, remembering the impossible choice he had made for years ago. He was the commander who had approved Operation Phoenix, knowing it was a suicide mission, but believing the intelligence was too vital to ignore. I sent 8 of the best soldiers I have ever known into what was almost certain death, Hayes confessed to Torres, his voice filled with the guilt he had carried for years. When the first report came back saying there were no survivors, Hayes believed he had destroyed 8 families for nothing. Learning that Maya had not only survived but had succeeded brought a wave of both relief and renewed, overwhelming guilt. The base-wide assembly Hayes called was unlike any Fort Carson had ever seen. Every single soldier was required to be there for what would be the most important briefing in the base's history. Jake Morrison stood in formation, completely confused and now terrified, as he slowly realized something terrible was happening. His confidence was gone, replaced by a growing dread that his cruel campaign was about to have consequences he never imagined. The hall was filled with nervous energy as soldiers whispered, sensing that whatever was about to be announced would change everything. Hayes's speech began with a voice of stone. For the past several months, many of you have systematically harassed and humiliated Sergeant Maya Mitchell. You called her a failure. You mocked her service record. You created a hostile and toxic environment for one of the most highly decorated soldiers in United States military history. With every word, Jake's world collapsed, his face draining of color. The general's next words hit the entire assembly like a shockwave. Sergeant Mitchell is not a failure. She is a classified hero, whose real story cannot be told publicly because of national security. Her entire disciplinary record is a complete fabrication, created to protect ongoing intelligence operations. The explanation of the Phoenix Unit tattoo left the assembly in stunned silence. That tattoo you have spent months mocking, the general continued, represents a level of sacrifice most of you will never understand. It represents completing an impossible mission while watching your entire team die around you. 7 elite soldiers went into hell. 1 soldier came out alive, and that 1 soldier saved over 2,000 innocent American lives. The consequences were immediate and severe. Jake was stripped of his rank on the spot. A criminal investigation for systematic harassment was launched, and formal written apologies were demanded from everyone who had taken part in the campaign against Maya. In a private conversation later, Hayes approached Maya with deep humility. Sergeant, I have failed you twice. Once when I sent your unit into that hell, and again when I allowed you to be tormented here, under my command. Maya's response showed her true character. Sir, you made the hard choice commanders have to make. We all volunteered for that mission, and we saved innocent lives. That's what matters. Hayes then made Maya an offer that stunned everyone who heard it. Sergeant, I'm offering you an immediate promotion, a return to elite special operations, or any assignment you want, anywhere in the world. You have earned the right to choose your path. But Maya's response surprised them all. Sir, I need time to think about that. Jake Morrison's fall from grace was as total as his rise to power had been cruel. Within hours of the general's speech, Jake was stripped of his rank, facing a court-martial, and scheduled to be transferred under armed guard. His military career, which he had built by tearing others down, was over. As he packed his few belongings, he looked at his old awards and commendations and finally understood that his entire identity was based on cruelty, not leadership. The very videos he had made to humiliate Maya were now being used as legal evidence against him. The soldiers who had laughed with him now avoided his eyes, ashamed of their part in persecuting a true American hero. His final conversation with Maya took place outside the barracks as he was preparing to leave. Maya, he began, his voice a quiet whisper, I destroyed someone without even knowing who they were. Maya looked at him with the same calm she had shown through all the torment. You destroyed someone, period, she said firmly. Not knowing. Their story doesn't make it right. You chose cruelty. Desperate, Jake asked, how can you ever forgive me for what I did? Maya's answer was both a lesson and a final judgment. I don't waste energy on forgiveness, Jake. I focus on moving forward. That's what real survivors do. When he asked if he could ever change, her final words would haunt him for years. Change is always possible, but it has to come from understanding why you chose cruelty, not just from getting caught. The culture at Fort Carson was transformed. Soldiers who had once mocked Maya now struggled with their own shame, writing apology letters and requesting transfers. Others approached her with genuine respect, asking her about true military service and what kind of leadership allowed her to survive the impossible. Lieutenant Torres, in his own moment of clarity, admitted to Maya that he had suspected the truth but had been too afraid to act. "Now you understand the difference between following orders and doing what's right," Maya told him. When he asked how he could become a leader who protects people like her, she gave him his new guiding principle: listen more than you speak, question more than you assume, and never let fear stop you from protecting the innocent. During this time, Maya finally allowed herself to process the trauma she had carried for 4 years. For the first time since Syria, she grieved in private, with vivid and painful flashbacks. She remembered her Phoenix team laughing before the mission, the moment they realized it was a trap, the 72-hour fight for survival, and the pain of finding her teammates' bodies and having to leave them behind. She remembered the 7 funerals where grieving parents thanked her for bringing their children home. The survivor's guilt that had made her choose disgrace over honor finally began to be understood by those around her. Why did they have to die while I lived? She had asked herself. How do I honor their sacrifice without dishonoring my own survival? The prestigious offers from General Hayes represented everything a soldier could dream of: immediate promotion, a return to elite operations, officer candidate school, any assignment in the world, and a public medal of honor ceremony. Any of these would have restored her reputation and guaranteed a distinguished career. But Maya's response revealed the true depth of her new purpose. "General," she said with quiet conviction, "I want to work with military veterans who are transitioning back to civilian life." The room was silent, as everyone realized she was choosing the lowest profile, least glamorous option available to a hero of her status. Her reasoning revealed a wisdom that went beyond personal gain. 7 incredible people died so that others could live. I survived so that I can help other survivors find their way through the darkness. The most important battles aren't always fought with weapons, sir. General Hayes understood immediately. You're choosing to serve your country in a completely different way. Maya's final words on the matter became a legend on the base. I'm choosing to complete our mission, sir, just differently than anyone expected. Her decision to work with veterans was more than a career change. It was a new mission, a way to honor her fallen teammates by helping others heal. She knew that her real purpose had not ended in that Syrian stronghold, but had evolved into something that required a different kind of strength. Then, Maya made a request that surprised the general once more. "Sir, I want to start this program somewhere completely away from military bases. A quiet place where people can heal without being reminded of war every day." A year later, in the rolling hills of rural Montana, Maya Mitchell's new mission was in full swing. Phoenix Station was a converted ranch house, a sanctuary surrounded by wide-open spaces where the only sounds were the wind in the grass and the call of birds. Maya had chosen this place for its peace and its distance from anything military, creating a place where soldiers could heal without the constant triggers of their past. The program she created was revolutionary. It focused on silence over forced discussion, individual healing timelines over rigid schedules, and practical life skills over traditional therapy. Her approach, born from her own trauma and survival, was incredibly effective. Former Special Ops soldiers found new civilian careers. Veterans struggling with survivors' guilt learned to turn their painful experiences into a source of strength to help others. People who thought their inability to talk about their trauma was a weakness began to understand that quiet strength was still strength. Even military families, broken by the stress of deployment, found ways to reconnect through programs that helped them understand the invisible wounds their loved ones carried. The good work of Phoenix Station began to spread. Fort Carson adopted the Phoenix Protocol, a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. Lieutenant Torres, now a captain, created a training program called Recognizing Hidden Heroes, teaching officers to see the signs of exceptional service that might be hidden by classified records or personal trauma. Maya's own story, with the classified parts removed, became a case study in leadership schools, teaching future commanders about the danger of assumptions and the duty to protect all soldiers. Jake Morrison's journey toward redemption was one of the most surprising outcomes. After his disgraceful discharge, he struggled with who he had become. Eventually, he began working for a veteran mental health organization, focusing on helping veterans who, like him, struggled with anger and took their frustrations out on others. He wrote a letter to Maya a year after he left the military, explaining his transformation. "Maya, I can't undo what I did," he wrote. "But I work with angry veterans now, trying to stop others from becoming what I was. Every day, I remember the damage cruelty causes. I will never stop trying to prevent what I did. To you." Maya's response was a quiet act of grace. She kept his letter but never replied. Instead, she began making anonymous monthly donations to his organization. It was her way of showing that redemption is a personal journey, earned through action, not just words. Her support showed she had moved past her own pain to help even the person who had tormented her. The daily operations at Phoenix Station showed Maya's deep understanding of trauma recovery. Mornings were for practical skills like resume writing. Afternoons were for therapeutic activities like woodworking or gardening, allowing veterans to process their emotions through productive work. Sarah Martinez, a former Army medic who had arrived 6 months before, unable to sleep, now managed the station's medical program and slept soundly for the first time in years. Tom Bradley, an ex-Marine who had battled alcoholism, found his calling in mentoring new arrivals and was now sober and pursuing a college degree. The local community embraced the station, offering jobs and support, and showing the veterans that their service was valued, even if their struggles were not always visible. In a full-circle moment, a 22-year-old female veteran arrived at Phoenix Station. She had just been discharged after a difficult combat tour where she lost several friends and was now battling severe PTSD. Her family didn't understand why she couldn't just get over it. The young woman embodied the very challenges Maya had created the station to address. Maya's approach was patient. She worked beside the young woman in comfortable silence, giving her simple tasks and never pushing her to talk. The breakthrough came one night. "Everyone thinks I'm weak," the young woman said, "because I can't talk about what happened. They want me to open up, but the words just aren't there." Maya's reply captured the essence of everything she had learned. "Strength isn't about talking," she said gently. "It's about surviving first. Then, it's about helping others survive. The words will come when they're ready." Showing the young woman her own Phoenix tattoo, Maya explained, "This represents my 7 teammates who didn't make it home. Your silence represents your survival. Both have meaning, and both have value." She gave the young woman a small, handmade Phoenix pin. "This isn't about rising from ashes," she said. "It's about remembering that survival has a purpose, and that purpose unfolds slowly." As the sun set over the Montana landscape, Maya sat with a group of veterans around a campfire. No one spoke, but they were all connected by a shared understanding. Her voice was steady as she spoke the words that had become the motto of Phoenix Station. "I learned that the most important missions happen quietly. Some victories don't come with medals, and some heroes never get recognition. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is help one person find their way home." The legacy of the Phoenix unit was not in secret files or ceremonies, but in the quiet, healing work that happened every day, in a place where silence had become strength and survival had found its true purpose. Then, Maya received an unexpected visitor. A young military officer arrived at Phoenix Station with a message that could change everything about her new, quiet life. What did the military want with Maya now? And would she have to leave her peaceful mission behind?